Hey, I'm Mike. Let's make a Dave Grohl poster. This video is running at 3 times speed. I was just showing you that I'm using a regular old round brush for like 99% of this. So I photo bashed in a bunch of different angles of this seat thing that he's sitting in, and I redrew his entire leg and deleted all his hair and kind of smeared everything around so that I can kind of paint from scratch. Since this is supposed to be just like the guy who asked me to do this piece, like an office manager of some kind. I'm not sure exactly what, but he wanted a motivational poster, and he originally asked me if I could just like use a photo, and so I just decided to kind of paint and do sort of a concept art piece with Dave Grohl, because it really didn't take that long. This whole all said and done, this whole thing is like I was probably working for a half hour before I started the video, and then it took me, the video was like an hour. So I'm going to wash out a bunch of the detail, like where I photo bashed in his tattoos and stuff, and then I'm just going to paint over it. We could paint this whole thing from scratch, but since it's a commissioned piece and not something that's, I'm not going to be able to take something where I base a bunch of photos and make a print out of it or anything. So, I lost my train of thought. Anyways, for like 99% of this, I'm just using a round brush to paint in details, and then I'm using like a hard spray paint with no opacity to get those. If you see, there are big areas where there are like chunky bits of detail, and so I just kind of spray in, and then I go back and paint and smudge and paint and smudge, and then you get a fairly realistic effect. This thing is going to be printed pretty big, so I want there to be some detail, but it's more the illusion of detail than anything. See, so this is you could see on the brush selector there in the sort of center right. It's punk rock poster ink. It's like an airbrush that. You can see it pretty well right there. It's just kind of a fuzzy airbrush. It's not a solid airbrush. And if you remove the density on the airbrush, it doesn't work quite the same. See, and zoomed out, it looked like there was a lot of detail in his face, but there's really not. It's just big gestural smudges. You'll see me moving around a whole bunch because I think I'm like one of the 7 people on Earth that I have genuine ADD. Like, no one ever prescribed me anything for it because I'm productive. It's like, oh, I don't feel like painting now. All right, well, I'll go draw, or I'll go write, or I'll go, just always doing something. So interesting technique for hair and such, if you're doing portraiture, especially if you're doing a digital portrait, is find some photo of the person and just grab 3 or 4 colors, like where their hair is bright, where they're whatever, and then that's what I've done here. So that light color, the dark brown, and then the almost black brown. If you see how saturated that red color is, I never would have known that his hair got that color. And then the rest of them, you just kind of, you can kind of look. But I find that if you have 3 colors of their texture of their hair, I know that's kind of weird because it's color, but if I was painting LeBron James or something, I would have no idea off the top of my head what color his hair is. I mean, other than it's obviously black, but it's buzzed down real close, and so you can see some of his skin underneath it. But if not, so I'm not going to go into the color picker and grab like 100 colors and try and get every one of them in there. But I just like to get 3 predominant colors, and then just kind of go from there. See, we could have spent. I mean, we could get his face super, super realistic if we wanted to, but I don't know why I say we. That's such a weird characterization. I think initially I was going to have it, like, I had to change the direction that his hair was going at a certain point. Yeah, see, I'm like taking out the hair that was on his face there. And notice that I'm not using the color wheel at all. I'm just picking from what was there. Just start with 3 colors, 3 base colors, and as they blend together, just pick from there, and then it'll end up looking nice. That's how I do it. I'm sure there are other ways. This was super fun because I'm such a Foo Fighters fan. You know, I do a lot of physical media, rock portraiture. It's an awkward word. But I would say half of the work that I do that I get paid for is creating like, I'm doing kind of a Goku thing there, is creating these 12 by 18 gouache and mixed media portraits. I've never put one on YouTube. Maybe I will. They take a fairly good amount of time, and I wish that I could find some way to just make a career out of making those. I have so much fun doing it. Here I'm just trying to find some interesting shapes so I can add the amount of detail that I need. And I've got that brush that I'm using is really, so this is a smudge tool. This thing works just like a palette knife on oil paint. I call it the smooth painter. You will see me use it a lot with digital work. It desaturates and lightens at the same time when it smudges, especially if you pull from the edges. It treats it like, not like there's white pixels, but it blends transparent pixels into the edges, so it really has a specific look to it. It's like one of the very few brushes that if I lost, I would be lost without. It's also the Photoshop engine just cannot recreate that brush, which is one of the reasons that you'll see me flip back and forth too. You know, when it's zoomed out at a certain point, like it looks semi-photographic, so I'm just trying to put lines in it to try and give it that, give it a more silly look, like my traditional work looks. It's just so easy with digital tools to go so detailed, to just get lost and just, have all these interesting textured brushes, and, everything has its purpose. And I'm a big fan of brushes, but I think that this piece is a pretty good example of just how far you can take a round brush, because I would say 97% of it is just a round brush and a smudge tool. That's it. And I left his foot also. I just did that sort of silly blue casted drawing like that, and I was going to go make it, all lifelike, and then it looked so ridiculous that, I don't know, it kind of worked when I was done. I wanted to do it, the request was for like a motivational poster, so I wanted to do it with a black frame, and the black frame with like the whale coming up out of it that says commitment or devotion or whatever, and that wasn't going to look right at all, so I ended up doing something different. Now, because I am painting with a brush with such opacity, what I didn't realize is that this the back piece to his throne there, that thing is like 90% clear. So what I was expecting to be like, I was kind of expecting the words to be hidden behind it, but they showed through when I put text in the background, and that was just a happy accident. I thought that I had painted enough that it wasn't clear. So there, I just added 6 bridge saddles to the bottom. I was pretending that this was a Gibson Explorer, but I mean, I can see that there's binding there. It's not an Explorer, and that bridge is probably not right. I don't know. That might be one of his Gibson ES335s, but I don't know. I really didn't spend much time on this hand. It doesn't look real good. You know, there's a, you know, I'm pretending there's a really hard light coming from the other side, but and you can see, like, when you zoom this thing out, you think that there's all this detail, but painting is just an illusion. If you go in there and you try and actually add the detail or really add his tattoos with all that tone and texture, like, it's usually going to be super, super, super stiff or really, really weird. Notice that I started adding, let's see how weird his teeth look? I had to fix that after the fact. I wasn't really paying attention. You know, I'm actually getting more detail by smudging out, you know, detail. Again, that's that punk rock poster ink brush. And I can just add, it's, you know, it's, if you look up on the left-hand side, there's a brush density setting, and I usually have it set pretty low. And that's a way to avoid things looking airbrushy. Like, there's nothing cheaper and more empty looking than adding a, you know, trying to tone or trying to change a color with just airbrush. Detail is all about, it's just about texture. You just want texture in everything, and you want it to be varied texture. You know, skin is different than a shirt, is different than whatever else. But see how I'm painting in. Now, if I had done this with just like the regular airbrush, it would look cheap and stupid as, like, it wouldn't look good. I hope I don't, like, if you do that, like, it's, maybe you make it look good. I can't make it look good. Like, I would never want to discourage anyone making anything ever, because you're a king of the world if you make something. You know, so few people bring something into existence. I hope that those are Squire bass necks, like the cheap versions. I hope those aren't like Fender P basses that they chopped up to make this throne. Some of those guitar necks are really, really crappy, but there's a Telecaster neck there, and there's at least a Telecaster and a Stratocaster neck there. I have to wonder where they got them. See, I'm just smudging and grabbing colors, and, you know, this is just going to be an illusion. See how his chair, like, it looks metal from when you zoom it out, but it's not. It's just gray and white. It's gray and white with a nice, you know, spray paint brush, like an actual spray paint brush, and not, I mean, and not like the airbrush. I try and never touch the actual airbrush. That dense sort of, unless you're trying to get like a glow effect or a lens flare or something, it just has this look that just overtakes the entire image. And oh, I did do a little bit of work on this. See, that's all. None of that is paint, what I'm doing right now. Just mixing the colors together. Turning those black lines into shadows. You know, which when you smudge those out into that blue, you're just creating a really desaturated blue. You know, it's not a gray color, which won't look right. Here again, more of my style of airbrushing. You don't want to have like, I'm not spending a bunch of time on these details on the outside. We could make those guitars look nearly as good as his guitar, but you don't want to take away from the focus. The focus is clearly Dave Grohl, and when you start adding detail, you know, there's two big things that you can do to tell a story. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, a lot more than two things, but wherever you have a bunch of saturation, or here's where I do the frame, and I'm like, nope. Like, immediately I got off that. Like, in 30 seconds, I knew that wasn't going to work. But also the level of detail. Like, you want more detail in someone's face than you do the rest of their body. I should have taken, I didn't want to, I was just being lazy. I was like, oh, I can do this in Mega Studio. Mega Studio, the text thing is not as good as Photoshop. It's inferior in almost every way. And I didn't have a plan for the words, but, you know, this is clearly such a cool moment in rock history. This iteration of Dave Grohl isn't where he broke his foot on stage and then came back out 10 minutes later. First time I saw Foo Fighters was in 1997? No, maybe 98. I didn't see him for the first tour. You know, the self-titled album. The first time I saw him was on The Color and the Shape, and I think it was at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. And you know, this was before the Blue Gibsons, and it was really before, you know, they were even rock stars. The lineup wasn't set. Taylor wasn't in the band. You know, Dave was doing everything on every record. He really gives it all live, man. So I've got all these text layers on top, and I don't know, I'm just basically playing around. I thought about putting some kind of mask over all the pixels on the bottom layer, and then putting like a hard light or something, and just eating all the paint and turning everything yellow, or and then leaving the red and the Foo Fighters. I'm just, you know, looking. I've got this thing smeared over here, and I'm just looking in my mind's eye, like, oh, what would look cool if this is like a poster? Like, who cares about your stupid painting? Like, no one cares about that. Like, they just want to know that it's Dave Grohl and his hair looks awesome. That's all they're gonna see. No one's gonna see what kind of Gibson that is. No one's gonna care. Even guitar guys like me, you're not gonna see the neck. Like, don't spend time on things that aren't important. Which in this case, like, people are gonna read the words. Get these big bold words, and then they're gonna try and figure out, you know, maybe if they don't know the story and like how he's, you know, well, they know a guy's got a broken leg and he's still playing his show, which is really cool, right? But if they don't know the story of that, then maybe they'll ask. That's the story that you're telling. You're telling a story about one of the greatest things anyone's ever done in music ever. You know, Dave broke his leg, and he was like, "I'm going to the hospital. I'll be right back." And then 5 minutes later, they're casting his leg while he's playing on the stage. That is so, you know, like, what a sense of honor and duty and perseverance and commitment and loyalty to your fans. And knowing that you have the best job on earth. You know, not everyone who plays music, like, look at Kurt Cobain. He didn't realize he had the best job on earth. The media, I can't go outside. You know? I mean, I was and still am a huge Nirvana fan. But not everybody gets it the way Dave gets it, right? Like, that's why we respect it. Or at least everybody should respect him. You guys got some of the best quotes of anyone in rock history, for sure. So I'm just mashing in words, and then we're going to rasterize it, which means turn it into an object. And if you make and mess with text, like, don't be afraid to. I don't do it here, but once you get that text, grab the transform or the warp tool or whatever and see what you can do with it. So many times when you see artistic lettering, it's not that, like, they found a really, really cool font or they wrote this thing out by hand. It's that they warped it into some type of perspective. That's it. Just like you would when I was photo bashing or whatever, you know, just Control T or whatever it is to do the warp thing. And the warp tools in Mega Studio and Photoshop, that's one of the things that differ. Photoshop has a couple very, very interesting. Well, of course, Photoshop has the greatest tool of them all, which is I just blanked. The melt thing. What is that called? I don't know. I have it set to 8. I should know what it's called. Liquify. There it is. Oh my god. Brain fart. I just knew inherently that I was going to, like, I knew exactly what color the background was supposed to be, and I can't explain why. It works. I don't even have a color theory explanation. I just look at this thing and I go, it needs to be a medium saturated yellow. So I'm fading the text out a little bit. And I fill the background. And it's done. I think I farted around with it a little bit. I had to fix his teeth. But I was just signing it. My texture brush, numero uno. Anyways, thanks for watching this. I hope to... I just got a webcam. So you can see me up in the corner there, and I'm going to start doing my live art. Most of my art is traditional. That's the type of illustration that I do, but clearly I do digital stuff too. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed a little conversation about the Foo. If you have questions, leave them below. Like, subscribe, whatnot. Happy arting. Thanks for watching.